Welcome back, y'all, to Hallmark Gear Reviews. Today, I'm going to start a new series that I call Fabrics of Time, where I go over some of our favorite fabrics in menswear, heritage menswear, men's fashion, and explain how they got here. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to go over my kind of favorite modern interpretations of that fabric in clothing. Today, with us transitioning from winter to spring here pretty soon, I wanted to go over what is my favorite fabric, corduroy. Now, I don't know what it is about corduroy that I love. I don't know if it's kind of the combination of like the old money look with the heritage durability. And if you want to understand kind of the history of corduroy, we have to go all the way back to around 200 BC in northern Egypt to what was once its capital city, Al-Fustat. That's where we find kind of the base fabric that would eventually become corduroy, fustian fabric. Now, fustian fabric was characterized by its heft because it was a combination of these heavy twills and sateen fabrics. But this heft allowed it to be brushed, which also made it a good fabric for warmth. Now, it would take a while before fustian made its way into Europe, kind of somewhere around the late Middle Ages, where it was really used for priests' robes, women's dresses, and for the elite to pad their more decorative garments for warmth. And this trend of the upper class padding their decorative garments would kind of come to a head whenever Shakespeare basically mocked them for it in his writings and in his plays. Now, throughout this time, we'd see a lot of different iterations of the fustian fabric being made of different materials like cotton, linen, and sometimes wool. It would also lead to the creation of moleskin and velveteen. But it wasn't until the 18th century, at the start of the Industrial Revolution, that we would see fustian being turned into corduroy. Now, we can't be 100% certain we know the origins of the word corduroy. Early theories suggest it was French for corduroy, or fabric of the king. This has largely been debunked as basically marketing. Another theory is that it's a mashup of two words, cord, which is a reference to kind of the wales or ridges in corduroy, and duroy, a wool fabric that was really popular at the time. One thing we can be certain of, though, is that it likely originated in Manchester, England, which at the time was where most of the production of corduroy was coming from. The wales, or ridges in corduroy, is really what makes it a distinct and recognizable fabric. These wales are created by taking the base fabric that we mentioned earlier, weaving extra yarns through it, and then cutting those yarns and brushing them. It would give the corduroy its distinct velvety texture and add a little bit of warmth and plushness to the fabric. Distinctions between different corduroy fabrics are really the wale count, or how many wales per inch the corduroy has. The higher the wale count, the more ridges there are. If you have a very low wale count, those ridges are going to be thicker and more plush. Now, corduroy's durability, warmth, and ease of laundering meant it had a variety of uses, from men's tailoring to workwear. But after World War II, the popularity of corduroy started to dwindle, until the 1970s when, like denim, it kind of became the fabric of the anti-establishment. So much like in the 19th century, corduroy is kind of enjoying a bit of steady popularity right now. And while it's not as popular as denim and canvas, manufacturers are finding some really cool ways of using the fabric. Some of my favorite are, to start off, this pair of Donegal corduroys from Wythe. Now, Wythe worked with a mill in Italy that specializes in corduroy to make this fabric look like Donegal sweaters from Ireland. That's what gives it its kind of iconic speckled look. I think it gives these pants just a little bit of flair without being too in your face. Next up is Battenwear. They're kind of a modern interpretation of vintage Patagonia and LL Bean garments. They collaborated with a jean company out of Japan, CRT Jeans, to make this pair of what I think is kind of the best interpretation of 70s Levi's corduroy pants. They offer these pants in a straight leg and a boot cut in these awesome vintage colors of yellow and brick. Next is a brand Orslo. They are a Japanese company that takes military and workwear inspired garments and kind of puts them through a modern filter while staying true to the original garment's purpose. These are a much more subtle version of the previous pants I mentioned from Batten Wear. They're offered in their shoe cut, which is a very subtle boot cut, so you could wear it with sneakers and boots if you wanted, and a much more versatile khaki color than the yellow and brick color offered in Batten Wear's option. And then we have this suit from Needles Japan. Now, if you're familiar with Needles, they have a lot of very bold garments, especially their tracksuits. This corduroy suit has just a little bit of flare without being too much. The jacket has these awesome Western inspired yokes on the front and back. Now, I really like it whenever manufacturers find other ways of using corduroy or mixing fabrics on one garment. So this jacket from William Ellery is a perfect example of using corduroy to line the collars or cuffs of a jacket. This is a waxed canvas jacket with corduroy collars, and I just really love the heritage look that the corduroy gives this jacket. And although corduroy is thought of as a warm fabric, it hasn't stopped some manufacturers from making the garment wearable in the summer months. One example is Patagonia's cotton corduroy shorts. These are kind of like a fatigue short. And in the same vein, the fashion brand Engineered Garments out of New York has their take on a pair of corduroy shorts, but in this wild paisley pattern. Might be too bold for some, and if it is, then they also have a khaki version as well. All right, y'all, that does it for this first episode of Fabrics of Time. If you liked it, please subscribe. I'm thinking in the future I'll go over denim, canvas, linen fabrics, and I might even talk about why I think we can utilize polyester's benefits while also being conscious of the environment. Please subscribe if you want to see the full series, comment for any future videos, and I'll see y'all in the next one.